Hello and welcome to the Meditation Conversation, the podcast to support your spiritual revolution. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I love this episode with Ken Lloyd. He has a fascinating story of how his near-death experience catapulted him into huge spiritual transformation. He's a walk-in who is ultimately holding the aspects of 22 souls, and he explains what that means and what it's like for him as he works with these souls to help heal his clients, and what it's like for him to work in the library of creation. At the end of our interview, Ken does a short light language activation, so be sure you tune into that and you may want to listen to it more than once. One suggestion for listening to this episode is to listen to it at regular speed. If you're the type of person who listens to podcasts on an accelerated speed, you'll benefit from being patient with this one and listening at the regular speed so you can benefit the most from the energy that's coming through in this episode. Ken Lloyd is a spiritual guide and healer who, after a profound near-death experience, or NDE, integrated 22 soul aspects from his higher self and oversoul collective into his physical being. This union allows him to channel higher frequencies and transmit powerful ascension and healing codes to humanity, using light language that is conveyed from his collective. Ken contains a 580-foot omnidirectional healing field that catalyzes individuals who enter it, accelerating their healing and spiritual growth. This energy field promotes profound transformation, helping people release energetic blockages, balance their energy fields, and activate their higher consciousness. So we'll get into this in just a moment. But first, I am so excited about the Sedona Ascension Retreat, March 14th through the 16th, 2025. I can't wait to see amazing guests such as Bashar, Robert Edward Grant, Billy Carson, William Henry, and previous meditation conversation guests like Adam Apollo, psychic lawyer Mark Anthony, Alan Steinfeld, Vivian Chavot, Amanda Romagna, and so many more amazing guests. You can use code KaraGoodwin5 for 5% off your ticket. I hope to see you there. And now enjoy this episode. Well, welcome, Ken. I am so excited to talk to you today. Thanks so much for being on the Meditation Conversation.
Well, thanks. I've been looking forward to this for well over a month now, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It does take a little while before the recordings happen.
I think a month is actually pretty good.
Good.
Typically, it's several weeks or not several weeks, but several months before people can get you fit in. I'm like, wow, all right, we're going to hop right in here and have some fun. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And you've got such a fascinating story. There are lots of ways and places we could take this conversation, but I'd like to start with your NDE, your near-death experience, and the journey to discovering this new version of Ken.
Yeah. Still on that journey, right? It never seems to stop. So NDE, right? Near-death experience. And, when we hear about these things, when we see them on TV or the news or whatever the case is, right? There's always an amazing story that comes along with this, right? Somebody's been healed. Somebody had a conversation with God, or I met my relatives, or all the versions of me, so on and so forth. Just amazing stuff. And, there's part of us that says, hey, I want to have that experience. I don't want to die, but I want to have that experience,
Yeah.
right? So it did happen to me, but not like it was that we see, on YouTube and everything else. There was no real experience. So in 2018, I'm a cybersecurity guy. I've built 3 cybersecurity companies. I sold all 3 of them, right? I'm the guy that comes up with the ideas, creates the software, or finds the team, and we build the company up to 5 or 10 employees, and then we sell them. So kind of I start companies and then I sell my companies off. And I've done that 3 times. And it was the third one that everything happened. So 2018, mobile security, had a business partner, and I wasn't getting paid very well. And we were in the middle of acquisition, and the information that was being passed back and forth between the company buying us and my company, my business partner, was very clear. And that stressed me out. I mean, anger, stress, anger. I mean, I could say anger 1,000 times here. Just imagine how frustrated I was that this acquisition's happening and I'm not as involved and aware of what's really happening behind the scenes. So at that time, the stress in my life was pretty massive. I had already been diagnosed with a brain tumor. And that
Oh my
was about a year
goodness.
and a half earlier, maybe 2 years earlier, was getting ice pick headaches, right? And beginning to pass out randomly, things like that. And the tumor was a pituitary tumor. And, as I said, NDEs, people come back and they're healed. That didn't happen for me. No miraculous healing. After my NDE, about 6 months later, I had the surgery. And when they did the biopsy, it was a cortisol tumor wrapped in a cortisol cyst. So it was stress on top of stress in this beautiful package. So
Wow.
I'm on a lot of ADHD medicine at the time. I'm on massive amounts of energy drinks. My employees are across the world. And I flipped one day. Something, the partner had told me something and it triggered me. And I just got angry. I know I walked into my bedroom and I'm like, you know what? I need to take a time out, right? As they say to the children, take a time out. And so I laid down and my stomach then arched in the air. So stomach pointing towards the ceiling, upside down letter U, if you will. And I mean, it was a crazy position my body just kind of moved itself into. And I was locked in position for 2 to 3 minutes, maybe more. Just totally, it felt like I was plugged into an electrical socket, had no idea what was going on. But the one thing that clearly happened during this was I felt something coming out of my abdomen area. I mean, like energy wise, right? I mean, it literally felt like a mass coming out of my abdomen. I had no idea what that was. Passed out, fell asleep, woke up the next day, right? And the only difference in my life at that very moment was I was a little bit more peaceful. I don't know why. Like all of a sudden, the things coming at me in life were just, they weren't as aggressive. They weren't, rubbing me the wrong way. But that very point is what that time was what shifted everything in my life. So I immediately began to turn off the news. Like I think it might have been an election year this happened, 2018. I don't even know, right? I don't even know these dates.
Well, there would have been like midterm.
Something, yeah, I don't even know. But
Mhm.
I turned off all the news. I unsubscribed from all of my computer stuff. So I lost my passion for computers. The one thing I've done for 27 years, gone. Didn't have any interest in subscribing to a single newsletter, podcast, nothing. I had no idea what was going on with technology. So as I moved through this, I found every day, I found myself dedicating more and more time to trying to figure out what happened to me. Like, what was this thing? Why do I feel different? Now, nothing was going on in my world at the time. Like, I wasn't healing people, wasn't doing all of this. It was just, and there was a shift. There was a subtle shift. So rather than going to doctors, I ended up going to psychics, which I hadn't been to before. And I would get just a little bit of information, like a little breadcrumb from each one I would go to that would say, go a little further, go a little further, go a little further to discover what happened. And I started reading the books about auras and remote viewing and, you name it, the list of 30 things we'd love to do if we could, right? I'm like, this stuff's really, really neat. So I learned you had to heal your body in order to be connected to spirit. At least that's what I thought at the time, right? And it's kind of true to some degree, right? You need to clean the poisons out of the body. You need to change the way you think. And specifically, I'm referring to me. Not everyone's the same, right? Some people are born with and they're turned on and it just comes in. That's great. But for me, I had to get rid of the energy drinks. I had to get rid of the ADHD medicine. I had to clean up my environment and begin shifting and changing the way I saw life. So through the journeys, I ended up hiring someone to teach me multidimensionality. Now remember, I have no idea why I'm doing this. I just feel compelled to start paying people to tell me things I don't know. All right. I have no idea I'm doing this. But so I hired this person and, she taught me how to meditate, but not in the meditation that we typically are told to do. Not the let's quiet the mind, let's quiet and go into the void or the 0 point or whatever. It was literally about me dropping in and then immediately going on a journey. And I usually say, take me to Mars, take me inside of Mars, take me to this planet, take me to this. And every time I would go somewhere, and she was able to see everything that was going on. And this particular person would tell me, I don't think I've had a student yet that was able to do all these things. And, quite honestly, Kara, I was pretty sure I was being fed, because it's like, what is all this stuff? I've never done those things before, and why am I doing them now? And is the person on the other end of the phone just looking for my money? So there was that aspect of me. It says, okay, well, I'm seeing these things. This other person's validating these things, but I really didn't have the belief process in place that things were actually happening. So moving on forward, I began reading books about energy healing. And sure enough, I would start hearing these people that were sitting around me. I took Reiki, right? Opened up the channels in my hands, and I never practiced Reiki, but getting Reiki certified was a huge step in opening up these energies that flow through me. So, ultimately, I learned that I was an energy healer from reading books and from other people telling me what was going on. As we know in our journeys, we run across people who will tell us a little bit more about our journey. And I had someone come up to me and said, you're a walk-in. This is what's a walk-in. So now I had to research it, right? Now I had to read about it. I'm like, I'm a walk-in. And as I'm reading the descriptions of a walk-in, it starts to kind of gel, kind of make sense a little bit on why don't I have these memories? Why don't I have these things? Why do I feel different? Why are these things happening? So the idea of a walk-in definitely fit the description. So for your audience, let me explain what a walk-in is. There are several types of walk-ins. The ones that we are most familiar with are what they call soul exchanges. So imagine this body. At some point, I have a near-death experience and the soul walks out and another one walks in to occupy the same body. And soul exchange. And when that happens, the soul that's coming in has a lot of trauma because it doesn't know the spouse, it doesn't know the children, it doesn't know the job, it doesn't know these things. Now it has the memories and the cognitive ability to dialogue and all those things, but this isn't its family, right? This isn't its life. And what happens within weeks, everything shifts. They come in, they immediately ask for a divorce, they move out, they separate from everything they've known and they begin a new life. This is a typical scenario of a soul exchange. But this wasn't what happened to me. So Ken, I never went over in that tunnel, metaphorically. But imagine the idea of that tunnel opening during the near death and one walking over into me. Okay, now I didn't know what happened. I didn't know anything, actually. It took me quite a long time. But what that soul ended up doing, and soul aspect of me, a future version of me, they began pushing me to educate myself. And this is where that drive was coming from. Go read about this, go read about that, go do this, go take the QHHT, go do all of these things. And this was that soul aspect inside of me. Not only that, but it was preparing my body. So about a year and a half into this, I'm told I'm a walk-in, and then I meet our good friend, Sheila Seppi, which we talked about just briefly ago. But for the audience, Sheila Seppi, author of Walk-In Cosmology of the Soul, I believe. So Sheila is also a walk-in. She's a soul exchange walk-in. And I kind of see her as the poster child of walk-ins, right? So she's got the Conscious Awakening Network platform, and she puts a lot of content out there. So I came across her podcast and kind of resonated with everything she was saying. So I picked the phone up, I called her, I got a session together. She says, listen, she says, you don't have one. I'm like, what do you mean? She says, you've got 13. I'm like, 13? What do you mean 13? She said, you get 13 souls in your physical body. Okay. I kind of knew this because just before I met her, I ended up having an activation session done on me and 12 more came in. I'm like, what is going on? Wow. Why do we need so many? Right. So I've been working with Sheila and her team, her collective has helped me understand what's happening. But just to kind of give your audience a little more background, I try being here just a little longer, but the full story is in December just passed, so 11 months ago, my higher self, the oversoul, if you will, stepped into my physical body. And that was a 15-minute experience. In meditation, I couldn't move. I couldn't think. They turned off my ability to ask questions, and all I could do is simply observe all this energy flowing through me as my higher self, or the oversoul, they're telling me the higher self, stepped into the body. Now, the reason I tell you this is that a moment ago, I told you that most walk-ins have a life change almost immediately after they arrive. I was 5 years into the journey, I believe, when the higher self stepped in. And 2 weeks after that, that's when everything shifted. So 2 weeks after he stepped in, I was asking for a divorce. Right? Now, 17-year marriage. I got to tell you, it was a great marriage. It really was. No issues, no problems. And I lived a really good life. I do live a good life. And here I am, all of a sudden, asking for a divorce. So when he stepped in, he began shifting everything in my life. And the team told me, I call them the team of 22, that you're getting ready to go through the Great Reset. I'm like, what's the Great Reset? What do I need this for, right? Well, the Great Reset is literally a reset of every single aspect in my life, from family, relationships, environment, literally everything. So I went from being a cybersecurity 3-time serial entrepreneur doing all this wonderful stuff to selling everything I own in January, or giving it away, including the race cars, the classic cars, the lifts, gave away everything or sold everything, right? And in, was it mid-March, I think? Yeah, I think it was mid-March. I ended up moving to Mexico for 6 months with just 3 suitcases.
Wow.
Yeah, complete life reset. So this is the walk-ins, if you will, that are reshaping. I don't want to call it my identity because I still can, but they're reshaping everything in my external world for these high vibrational experiences to come in. So it gets juicier. So here I am in Mexico, and in April, I went there in April, and I went to Jalapa for 30 days. So Jalapa is a place by Puerto Vallarta on the Pacific side where you can only get to Jalapa by boat. So there are no cars. There are 4-wheelers, donkeys, and horses. That's Jalapa, and a very spiritual place, right? So you go there, you get to kind of relax and do your thing. But I was there for 30 days. And during those 30 days, 9 more souls stepped into the body. Now, it sounds crazy. It sounds dramatic, right? But I didn't even know it happened. Like, I knew there was more coming, but I didn't actually feel the experience, unlike it was back in December when I could feel everything. So here I am today. We're in October now, right? And I have 22 soul aspects that are in my physical body. And when I say my physical body, not only are they in the field around me, but they are integrated into the cellular structure, the DNA structure of the body, and of course, I said the field. In July just passed, I'm in Tulum, Mexico. And I've been there for about 10 days. And my team, the team of 22, says, you're going to go do Cambo and you're going to go do Bufo. And I'm going to go do what? Like, because I don't like these things, right? So for your audience, Cambo is a frog poison, I believe. And they burn 4 or 5 little holes on your arm and they apply this frog poison.
Wow.
Now, they do this after you drink about 2 gallons of water. So they make you drink this. I mean, it was disgusting how much water you had to drink. And then they apply this. And then within a minute, 2 minutes, you're purging. All right. So what's happening here is that poison.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah. And I don't understand why they were doing it, because a lot of people who go through these things have reactions. They're not ready for the emotions and all these other things in their body to be released. What I had found out is that the thing that came out of my body during my near death was my trauma. So because the trauma's gone, I'm able to do a lot of this other work without having to go through the preparatory stages of clearing myself necessarily, because they've already done it. So they applied the frog poison. I'm purging. 15 minutes later, I'm done and I'm fine. I'm like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm talking to my team. So then this is, well, now you got to go do Bufo. And it did it within a 2-hour window. And it's not a normal thing. I guess you don't do those in the same day. Did the Bufo. Now the Bufo is toad poison. So frog poison, toad poison. And the Bufo, the toad, contains DMT. All right. I believe I think the internet calls it the God molecule. Like, this isn't my thing. Like, I'm just not interested in hallucinogens and all that. But you smoke it, and It lasts about 15 minutes, maybe 20. And I remember inhaling this and almost immediately, everything just went bright, bright, bright colors, like a kaleidoscope. And if you remember when we were younger, we used to have those little kaleidoscope telescopes. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I have not done Bufo, but I've described my own kind of quantum experiences as like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's like those kaleidoscopes.
It was so bright and vivid. And then you immediately knock out and you're gone for 10 or 15 minutes. And the Bufo experience is what they call the ego death. And now I know why. Because 10 minutes when I'm starting to come through, I could see my ego in my mind's eye being walked over by two guides. I mean, they look clear as day. And my ego's looking back at me like, I'm not liking this. It was not happy. And it walked it over. And as soon as that happened, even with my eyes closed, I could see 22 beings in the tent with me. I had one of those big dome tents, right? So there's 22 beings in there, and 21 of the 22 were kind of fuzzy. So it's like you couldn't quite make them out with your eyes, but you knew they were there. But the one to my immediate right looked as human as could all be, right? Like flesh and blood. And I opened my eyes, and he was there. So were the other 21. In fuzziness, I closed my eyes, they were there. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, relax, relax. You're going to be able to see these things going forward. And they gave me a few messages. So one of the messages they gave me is my 24th chromosome was turned on, okay, which I thought was really interesting. And when I Google this, you'll find some things that say the 24th chromosome doesn't exist. And then you'll find health sites where they say it does. Ultimately, the 24th chromosome gives us access to more of our human potential. That's the way I understand it. They also told me that everything that I have done to this point was nothing more than a sniff of the aroma of what's cooking. Now, we haven't talked
I love that.
Yeah,
That's an incredible way to say that.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is I don't know how to cook, right? Here I'm in Mexico, and I have no idea what I'm doing, and they use these cooking metaphors. I thought that was pretty funny of them to do that.
Yeah.
But what really took place that day was when the cellular structure of my body was opened and my ego was no longer in the way. All 22 of them were able to merge in deep into the cellular structure of the body. All right. And now we operate as one. So I don't have 22 voices in my head.
Well, that's what I like, what's it like to live like this? Because if they're integrated within you, are you getting like different not even voices, but like different representations of information that's coming in, different like personalities that carry information? Or is it kind of like one, there's like a merging where they kind of present as a counselor? I mean, what's it like for you?
They do. So we are an embodied collective. We, including Ken. So Ken never left. Although I think there are aspects of me that have left, but I am still investigating that, right? It's funny. I can sit here and have a session with a client and tell you everything they want to know. But when I turn the questions on myself, I hear crickets. So for me, the 22 present as a single entity, a single collective, all right? Usually I'll see them off to my right. They have my personality.
You see them clairvoyantly?
No.
Or you just sense them?
I sense them.
Okay.
Because it's a little different now because I don't have to have the visual. All right. And I get frustrated with that, by the way. I'm like, I want to see you guys. I can see you. Let me see you. I want to see all 22 of you in my mind's eye. I have places I can go, the Library of Creation, where I can see and talk to them at times. But still, not all of them are completely clear. When they need to talk to me or catch my attention, I'll see them off to my right as a single silhouette of something. And they have my smile, they have my personality. And when they talk to me, it's my voice. And they talk to me in just one voice when they do this, because apparently they recognize it a lot more than I do, but having multiple voices in your head really isn't a healthy thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that would make you kind of question your sanity.
It would, absolutely, right. And they don't just come up and talk to me. If I don't have a question, they're not talking. So it's not like I'm watching TV and they're diatribing about the universe. It just doesn't work like that to me. So At the same time, I have this beautiful relationship with the 22. I also struggle. I totally struggle. And I'm like, listen, why don't you guys talk to me like I do when I see you with others? Our friend Sheila Seppi, right? They talk to her all the time. I'm like, Sheila, what's going on? So I asked my team about that. They're like, listen, she says, when you have something talking to you, something, just a general word, first of all, there's a delay in the response. You have to ask the question, you have to wait and you get a response. She says, second of all, you're going to infer or interpret what they're actually trying to tell you based on the words. I'm like, yeah. They said, we're already inside of you. Why do you want us to step out to have a conversation in your ear when we are inside of you? You need to shift to the knowing versus the ask question. So they're teaching me how to work with them differently. And I got to tell you, as soon as I did the Bufo Cambo, within days, the clairvoyant, is that the word? The claircognitive,
Clairvoyance?
It was so intense.
In terms of being able to see
with your mindset? And know with the clients, with everything going on, with myself, it was like boom, 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 boom. It was like intense, incredible, right?
Like while you were having it, you mean?
Well, when I was done.
When you were done. Okay.
Right.
So, and from then on, or?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But it varies, right? Mm-hmm. So when we keep our body in an incredibly clean, space, we receive more. We feel better, but we receive more. And when I'm in Mexico, I don't have any of the American food choices, right? I also don't drink that much. I don't have any of those bad habits. I literally, and I don't go, I just do the thing I do. And Mexico is beautiful because it doesn't have any of the, environmental pollutants. But then I get back to the United States, and now I'm back to the poor food choices, and now I'm recognizing some of the bad food choices that I've made, and I recognize there is a deficiency in the amplitude of the connection. Kind of like it's just a little fuzzier, but it's still there. Point is, the cleaner we maintain ourselves, the more we get out of it. So that was a lot of talking for your audience there. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I'm so we're recording this in the morning, and I'm just curious, like we're just a couple of hours into the day, but like from Ken's perspective, how has your morning been compared to what it used to be, just in terms of like the guidance or because I'm not a client, so, but you are sort of doing spiritual work right now in terms of just engaging with my audience and with myself. So in those circumstances, when it's not like a client call, mm-hmm. or whatever, what's it like for you? Are you getting like guidance? Are you getting
no?
No. Okay.
No, it's just as frustrating for me as it is for the next person that's on their journey. So even though I have all these incredible abilities to heal people and to get information, I struggle every day. Like, tell me why. Why aren't you talking to me more about these things? Or, it just ebbs and flows. And, even, and what's happening for me is that I do have good times and times that aren't so good. And I mean that in terms of communication and information from the team. There are times they're just spot on. They're in it. They're in it. I remember them telling me just before I went to Dallas a few months ago that, listen, someone's going to hand you something in 2 days. Don't take it. I mean, that's creepy. Well, it turned out they weren't handing me something. It was a scam call, pretending to be Google to get into my account in the middle of dinner 2 days later, and they wouldn't let me off the phone. So little things like that, right? So, I have worked on thousands of people, and a lot of folks will come to me to turn on their gifts and to understand where they're at in their journey. And the one thing that I have realized with typical folks on their spiritual journey is, it's like they step up a ladder or a run or a stair, and they take time to integrate that newness, maybe a new gift, a new knowledge, awareness, point of life, whatever. And then at some point, whether it be a day later or 10 years later, but they go up another level and another level. And for me, it's not like that. The way it's been explained to me by several other folks is that imagine the idea of an elevator, right? Instead of going up the step and hanging out for a little while and going up another level, hang out for a while, imagine the elevator just went straight up and did stop. This is the rest of my life. So I find myself with my gifts being activated, me using them, and then I'm like, well, what's going on, guys? And then it gets quiet. And then another one comes in, it gets quiet, and another one comes in. So for many of you who go through your activations and your growth, you'll notice right before you get your next thing, it's crickets. It's silent. You don't know where your guides went. You don't know why they're not talking to you. You get frustrated, and it's just everything getting prepared to go to the next thing. So I go through this a lot, and I struggle a lot with, where are you guys? So
thank you for sharing that. That's so relevant because I just in the last like 36 hours, I came across something. Maybe it was on Instagram. I wasn't on there very long, but it was just like it came somehow. I feel like it was a meme or something, and somebody was talking about the void period where it's just like you're saying. There's crickets. You don't feel like you're. And I think this was more about creatorship. Being in a creative flow, and how it's like sometimes we're creating, and then other times it just feels like it's done and nothing's flowing in to create more. And that can make us feel frustrated, but it is this important period of just integration and kind of clearing things out, letting things just kind of clear away and empty and quiet so that you can make space for more. And yesterday morning in my meditation, I woke up feeling so weird yesterday. And I was like, what? And I could never put my finger on why, but it was from the moment I woke up, it was almost like I was forgetting something and I couldn't put my finger on, or like I felt almost like a regret, like I was explaining it to a friend where I'm like, if like you've said something or you've done something and you're like, why did I do that? Why would I say that? And you feel so badly for hurting somebody's feelings, for example. And maybe you wake up the next day and you've got this whisper of like something's off, but you haven't remembered yet what you did. That's how I felt, but I couldn't. And then you remember what it is and you get that resonance and the penny drops and you're like, okay, now I've found the cause and I've matched it up. And there's just this sense of like, even though you don't feel great remembering what you're regretting, there's like a clicking of like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, now I can match the feeling with why, the cause. And it was like I'm just looking around for like, what is it that I forgot? What did I do? Why do I feel this way? And then, and I felt that in my morning meditation, I just wasn't really able to click in the way that I wanted to. And it just kind of set the stage for my morning where I just felt a little bit energetically like aimless. Yeah. So I love that you're mentioning that because it's so relevant to me. The things that you're talking about in terms of we want to strengthen that connection. We're wanting to all feel that connection and deepen it. And sometimes it's just not happening. I resonate with that so much as well. It feels like it comes and goes. Sometimes it's stronger. Sometimes it's weaker. And, trying to find avenues to strengthen it. So we talked about you've got a regular day and as you're going about your business, what that is like with the 22. And you're like, it's not really that different than how it was before. So now let's talk about when you're working with clients, when you're working with people who've come to you and they're like, I want to be activated. I want you to tell me what I don't know. What is that like for you?
That's awesome. Like that makes my day. The only thing that really brings me joy are the clients in the session, whether it be groups or individuals. And I really do mean that, sincerely, because when I'm with the client, the way this works is we just start talking. We'll spend 3 or 4 minutes just trying to understand what's going on in their world. Do they have a physical condition? Is it a heart issue? A heart issue meaning emotional, just for the audience. Is it a life issue or the job issue? Why are they in front of me? Just that simple, right? and walk-ins will show up in front of me. People who have attachments and entities. I mean, listen, across the whole gamut, those folks will show up. So when I'm talking to these clients, the first thing I ask them is, do you have pain anywhere in the body? It could just be discomfort, arthritis, or it could be pain, right? And that's the first thing I do for them, is I will pull that pain off their body. And it happens within seconds. So somebody's got a shoulder issue, I'll go in there. My team will tell me if it's a past life issue, ancestral. I mean, all the boxes, right? Past life, ancestral, trauma, lifetime, magic, childhood trauma, contract agreements. It's just, you name it, all of those potentials there. And the team will tell me ancestor. And they'll give me a number. They'll say like 2. And what I'll see in front of me, these 2 little stick figures coming across with little halos over their head. And this is in my mind's eye, like a movie. And the angels will come in, they'll reach down, they'll pull the energy out of this stick figure, which is the soul aspect of the ancestor, which they heal. And what's left under the halo is the trauma ball, which I pull out of the body. So for me to remove an ancestral connection takes 7-8 seconds, right? And you will feel it in your body almost immediately. Same thing with childhood trauma. Little stick figure, angels, boom, 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 boom. Now, as I'm doing this, I'll ask the person, do you still feel it? Move your elbow, move your shoulder around, right? Is it popping? Is it clicking? When I'm doing this, especially with the poppy, which I find really, really interesting, because I don't know much about the human body. I mean, I know the average guy, right? Like I don't know any of this stuff. And I'm like, how can your shoulder go from popping to not popping within seconds? To me, there's something rubbing and popping, but what's happening at the energy level is no, all that crunching goes away, and the necks and the backs, the discs. When I'm in a session, I see everything like a movie. And not only that, it's like an interactive movie. I'm able to go in and talk to the organ. I can talk to your shoulder, right? Not only that, but I can see the attachments that are in there, the energies, right? The entities that don't belong, whether they be really bad guys, yucky ones, right? Or whether they just be something you picked up at the grocery store. I can see these things. I can literally reach in, talk to those consciousnesses, and ask them to leave. Or I pull them out, break the contracts, and they're gone. And it happens so darn fast. If someone's sitting across from me, virtually or in person, and they have an issue with pain, if it's not done within 2 minutes, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, you imagine the idea that healing happens every single call. And when it doesn't happen, that's when you start asking questions, which usually it used to be the other way around, right? Like, I don't know how it's even going to work, but now if it doesn't work, I'm like, what did I miss? All I'm doing is removing energy interference. It's like removing the static on your favorite radio station. Reach in, I pull it out. And when I do that, your body goes back to its naturally healed state, often instantly. So there are exceptions to that rule, Kara. If you have a bump, a bruise, something visible you can see, those don't go away right away. Our brain, our eyes can't process, a lump being there now and then not being there seconds later. But the discomfort goes away immediately, and the pain does too. And then, those are the obvious things. But now people come in and say, listen, I've got cancer, I've got tumors, I've got SIBO, S-I-B-O, which is small intestinal bowel stuff, I guess, which I got to tell you, you'd be surprised how many people show up with digestive issues. And they're done, all the way through the whole thing. So yeah, instant healing. Literally, it's instant healing. And I'm talking to your team. I'm talking to everything connected to you, your ancestors, your past lives, your other realities that are also occurring are now showing up, and I'm talking to them and healing them and closing off the energy. So I know that, again, that was a lot me talking. I love what I do. It's just every client is different, and every client gets relief so fast. It's pretty awesome. So
that's amazing. What an amazing gift. I want to hear more about the Library of Creation, which you mentioned earlier. Is this also known as the Akashic Records? Is it something different?
Great question. And I'm still trying to figure more details about this out. Let me kind of explain. So last year, about this time last year, the team introduced me to what they were calling then the Living Library. And it's funny because they said there'll be a new name coming. I'm like, I don't even know why I needed the first name. This is how I talk to my team, right? So, and they said the Living Library is a library of everything that's ever existed. All right, across all universes, like literally everything that's ever existed. So, come springtime, they said the name is actually the Library of Creation. I started asking other psychics about this, try to get more information, because again, I can't always get what I'm asking. I have to go outwards, see it inwards. And they told me it is an annex like off of the halls of the Mint. Anything that's ever been created will be created. And we're talking about technology, we're talking about thought forms, we're talking about species, you name it, the whole nine yards is in this repository of information, Library of Creation. Now, I had said earlier in our call that the team began modifying my body. I couldn't understand why that was important. So as this process goes through, I'm starting to feel tingles on my body. All right. And the quieter I sat in stillness, the more I could see these energies flowing through the body. In physical form, the muscles would twitch in really crazy places. And this went on for about 3 years.
And this is within your body?
In my physical body.
Uh-huh.
The less I moved, the more amazing it felt. And it was, imagine falling asleep on your arm, but through your entire body, but it was just delicious. So they were modifying my body. Well, what was happening, and I recently found out about a year ago, is they were creating a field around me. The field right now is 580 feet. So what this means is that when I work on a client, I'm creating healing codes, programming codes, if you will, if you use the idea of a programmer writing software. Well, this software, these codes that I write, get stored in my field. So when you step into my field virtually or in person, you're getting exactly what you need without having to actually interact with me. Right? So just being in the field, listen to the recordings like this, you're going to get healing codes, you're going to get ascension codes, you're going to get whatever it is that you specifically are looking for. So in the Library of Creation, it is in my field. Now, when you come into Library of Creation, you imagine the idea that you have access to all information, all knowledge, and all stuff, but you don't actually know how to use the search engine, right? So what they are showing me now is how to access the Library of Creation. And what they've done is they've had me create certain rooms. So imagine the idea, you're like, listen, I need to remove the energetic attachments from my ancestors. Well, how do you do that on your own? You don't even know they're there. You go into these rooms, in the room of the ancestral connections, like the actual name of it, and you'll say, listen, please show me all the energetic attachments that are attached to me from the ancestors that are causing disease. And they will show you everything attached. Not only that, they will be dissolved for you. So in short, the Library of Creation holds all of my gifts, all my abilities and my capabilities. And when you, as an individual, come into the Library of Creation, you get my tool belt. You get to go into these rooms and heal yourself without having to interact with me, but you get all of my gifts to do it. You don't get to take them with you. But it's super cool in the idea that there is this room in there called the conference room. Now, the conference room is a white room, white chairs, white walls. Conference room, right? But when you go in there, you will ask to speak with any of the 22 that are in me, as well as your team. And guess who shows up at the table? 22. Or whoever of the 22 will show up. Your team will show up, and you get to literally have a dialogue with the angels, with whoever shows up.
And are they talking through you?
No. You are literally talking to them directly inside of this room. So I'm an observer. I don't even know the conversations that are taking place sometimes between the client and the 22.
Well, and so for a client, if they haven't had any like psychic experiences, for example, or they don't feel like they have the capability to have that dialogue, how does that work for them?
I typically won't take some of those folks in there.
Okay.
If they're not able, all they got to do is visualize. And everyone can visualize, but we have our own blockages, right? So if they're in the room, the ancestral, viewing the ancestral connections as an example, and they can't see these things, then I won't take them into the conference room.
Okay.
Right. But other folks, can go in there. And you don't need to have gifts. You don't need to be turned on. You don't need to be psychic in order to conference room. And, it's like, imagine you asking me a question, then I would ask the 22, but you can just go around me. You don't need me anymore. And I think that's beautiful. So not only once you get into the conference room, but you can go back anytime you want. Like, you don't need me anymore once you get your codes and your access to it. So library of creation, more and more is coming with that, right? Your ability to heal yourself will be done in the library of creation. So today I work on you. And every time I work on you, I create these codes in the library. I'm now taking, as of November, I'm doing my first class where I'm taking people into there so that they can learn how to use the library for themselves anytime that they have a problem. So that's coming up here shortly. It's a library of creation. Yeah, right. It's more coming, but I don't know what it is. I just know that I'm just trying to handle what's going on with right now, but super cool stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know that you offered to do a little light language session before we finish. So you feeling good about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't feel right if I didn't do it. So, folks, it's just a really quick healing. Everyone's going to get something different out of it. Don't have any expectations, please. And if you're driving, please don't listen. Don't
skip ahead a couple of minutes.
Yeah, don't close your eyes. But just notice what you notice, and it's okay if you don't notice anything. But here we go. Korea ma pisha aliada niada Karia ariada ni adonio pa biasha kodok dia tia sharia ni sharia no papia dia moria paparia dia kusha papia dia noria nia mama papia to hapa adi idi dia to shima prieto nia pa ni dia to papa Shori aniata papa adieta dikadieta de to recordonina barigania ni kichu brigodea papa adia nigate in it to procodia to shadia. Kariania tarikati hisiana so apa ani can get your bricodia daddy. Kurika papa dish can you take a can you chop up initiate near that ma ani nothing asking that can ditch can go to Syria. Copia to ship you to ship poppy shoot to chip to tia papa adia to one of the papa ditch the to the papa bullshit idea. Kari near to near mama alia tia tia tata tia to tia papa yes. We're almost done. Sharia do pok to eti ma ba arieti and ni ala shiokopo. Kusha papa o mo be ni niata arieto tiata tikati tia papa aria ni water shiata. Shishishko shatapo. Mi ani kalfa toshio. So thank you, we're done.
Wow. Thank you.
So I never know what's actually coming out when I'm doing the groups like that. And for me, I'm wondering what's going on for my schedule. What am I doing tomorrow? So I'm tapped out when that stuff comes through, right? And again, I have no idea what the team's going to do. I was on Coast to Coast AM radio station a month ago, right? And doing this about 5 o'clock in the morning, by the way, or 4 a.m. And I'm getting follow-up calls, of course. And they're like, listen, my back was healed in the car when I was driving. I'm like, yo. And I got that so many times, not just their back, but people having the experiences during the call, which your audience will as well. Some of them will absolutely have an experience. So that's going to be amazing for them.
That's incredible. I know that I could feel it mostly around my solar plexus, and I've had a lot of stuff going on in my solar plexus over the last few weeks, really, which I don't think is unrelated to all the solar things that are going on. But it was just really interesting because you've talked so much about codes, and with the cadence and the rhythm, it was as though it just kind of felt like codes coming, like coding, or like almost like there's almost like a Morse code, like tapping experience of it just with the cadence of your voice. It was really
There's
amazing.
definitely codes coming in. And the way that I've explained it to everybody who has a session with me or hears me in any capacity, right? They're getting their DNA attunements, their human DNA attunements, for the accelerated ascension, the ascension, right? So while I'm working on the healing, they are also working on correcting and aligning. They're telling me now, correcting and aligning everybody's DNA. Like that's the basis, but the
Kind of
operative,
base
yeah, like we're
level.
going to work on everybody, but everyone's
Yeah.
going to get their DNA activated. Right. And it gets a little bit more, not only are they activated, you need to clear it up. And they're also getting rid of what I call extra stuff. Now, I don't mean junk DNA, but what they've explained to me, and I'll explain to your audience, is that we are all receiving DNA activations and upgrades through various channels. Doesn't matter who it is, right? The problem is, it's not really a problem, but the concern is that these DNA activations that are coming down contain additional things that aren't necessary for the human. Okay. So when we're receiving an activation from our favorite person, okay, and that favorite person is connected to any particular species, it doesn't matter, ET species, right? It's no different than the human, where every species of whatever you want to call it, every individual of that species has their own opinion. They have their own agenda, right? So, when you get Joey, the channeler, channeling Jimmy, the ET, right? Jimmy might throw some extra things in there that you're not aware of. So what this team does, they're like, listen, you can have the activations, but we're going to get rid of the back doors and the hooks. We're going to dissolve the contracts you entered into that we weren't aware of. So it's kind of cleaning up behind the scenes while they heal the body and everything else. So everyone gets something regardless. They're cleaning up the act for everyone.
That's amazing. Do you have a sense from the light language piece? I'm curious about how that showed up for you. And did you just kind of start doing that one day? Did you take some training? Do you know where it's coming from?
Sort of yeses and nos to all of that, right? So I listened to an audio one day. It was a 6-minute audio, how to learn light language, right? And I was on a boat, a Key West high-speed ferry to Key West. And sure as crap, I'm speaking light language before I'm off the boat with my hand over my mouth, right?
Wow.
That easy. I mean, and for me, I know thousands and thousands of different light languages because of my job up there. I need to communicate with thousands of different species, thousands of different consciousnesses, and this is all done through light language. So I have that entire repertoire. And what I have found in the beginning, when I did my light language channeling, I would have 10 to 12 different voices or tones or speeds all coming through. And that would change every time I spoke. It would be something different. I'm okay with that. But what's happening here is the team, this is kind of what they're explaining, the 22 and me, we're melding together better and better. And there's no need to have so many variations of tones coming through. So they're beginning to standardize it on one volume, which is what we heard today. There might have been 2 or 3 tones in there, but ultimately one. And it's just the way they're changing the inside of me. So the thousands and thousands of light languages are there, but they're just presenting it more clearly. I don't always know what I'm saying. If I'm in a session with you and they want to come through and activate you, they'll tell me, and I'll be able to share that. But for group, I have no idea. And it's not even the people on the call. It's the people a month from now or 2 months from now. They're still getting it as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I've loved this, Ken. Thank you so much for being on. Tell people how they can find you.
Yeah. So the website's kenlloydofficial.com. And if you go there, just sign up for the newsletter. There's a free gift for you. And then I am rolling out some new group sessions starting November 14th. They're about 30 to 40 minutes once a week. And I'll go there and I'll work on your physical body as well as any other energy clearing that needs to happen. But check out my website, kenlloydofficial.com. Most of the details are there. You'll have an amazing ride.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. This has just been So insightful and super fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meditation Conversation. I would be so grateful if you would share this episode with someone in your life who would appreciate it. Your sharing helps to build momentum and make high vibrational content such as this more accessible and easier to find. I would also be so grateful for you to subscribe to this content. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to the next meditation conversation.